It really feels like the volume on cyber attack news has been turned way up recently.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, you keep seeing these headlines one after another. It kind of feels like something's building, almost gearing up.
That feeling isn't just anecdotal. There's definitely a pattern emerging from recent reports, particularly here in the UK. It's painting, a pretty concerning picture of what's going on.
Exactly. And that's what we want to get into today. One of you actually sent us a really interesting YouTube transcript, Neil McCoy Ward.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, looking at this recent wave of cyber stuff hitting the UK. So that's going to be our main source for this deep dive.
Right.
Our mission, basically, is to sift through this, figure out what these events really mean for you, understand the risks to, your data, essential services, that kind of thing.
And maybe point towards some practical actions, too.
Hopefully.
Okay, so filtering out the noise, focusing on the key bits. The transcript kicks off mentioning these reports about empty shelves
Hmm.
in co-op stores in Kent.
Yes, that caught my eye straight away. Apparently linked to a cyber attack that happened, 3 weeks before?
That's what the source suggests.
And the presenter, McCoy Ward, he seemed pretty skeptical about some of the coverage, like the BBC showing shoppers smiling.
Yeah, he flagged that sort of empty shelves, but everyone's happy. It does make you pause.
It does, doesn't it? Makes you question the narrative sometimes.
But looking beyond just, the specific image of an empty shelf, the bigger point is how vulnerable our supply chains are to this kind of digital disruption.
Ah, okay.
These just-in-time systems, they're efficient, sure, but they don't have much slack if something digital goes wrong.
Right, so it's not just about like one shop missing one product.
Exactly. It points to a potentially much wider problem for getting essential goods where they need to go.
Which then brings us to that really big one the transcript highlighted, the M&S attack.
Yes, Marks and Spencer. This looks like a pretty substantial data breach. And the timeline is quite striking.
Oh.
Well, the attack happened, but apparently customers weren't told for 3 whole weeks.
3 weeks? That seems long.
It's a significant delay.
Yeah.
Think about it. It's 3 weeks where people's data might be compromised, and they don't even know it.
So they couldn't, change passwords, check their bank accounts, anything like that.
Precisely. Less
Yeah.
time to react. And the data involved,
Mm-hmm.
it's sensitive stuff.
Like what specifically?
Telephone numbers, home addresses, dates of birth, apparently online order histories,
Hmm?
and maybe even passwords.
Yeah.
That's a worrying mix.
Yeah, that's basically an identity theft kit right there. Address, date of birth.
It really is. And the potential scale the source mentioned, possibly 9.4 million active online customers.
3.4 million. That's what percentage of the UK population is that?
The transcript estimated it around 13.5, maybe 14%. It's a huge chunk of people.
Wow. Okay, so M&S told people to reset passwords, especially reused ones. Standard advice, but yeah, it shows the risk.
It's good advice, always. But the financial hit, too. The source quoted an estimated $43 million loss per week for M&S because systems were down.
43 million a week. That's staggering. Shows how disruptive these things are for businesses, not just customers.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just M&S, apparently. The source mentioned Harrods also being targeted. Suggests this is not an isolated incident for retailers.
Feels like a pattern, definitely. And this delay in telling people, it keeps coming up, doesn't it? Waiting weeks just gives the attackers a head start.
It does. And, the source mentioned the chief executive saying there's no evidence data was shared, but also warning of a high risk of identity fraud.
That sounds a bit contradictory. How can both be true?
Well, it points to the uncertainty, I think. After a complex attack, it's hard to know exactly what happened immediately. They're trying to investigate, but also warn people.
Yeah, but maybe warning people sooner, even with less info, is better.
Generally, yes.
Mm.
Empowering people to take action is key, which leads us nicely to protecting your own data online.
Right, because the presenter, McCoy Ward, shared that really startling personal story.
Finding his own data for sale online, including medical data.
Yeah, that's terrifying, honestly. The thought that stuff, that personal, is just out there being bought and sold, it makes you feel really exposed.
It shines a light on these data brokers, doesn't it? Companies just gathering and selling our information, often completely without us realizing.
A whole hidden industry.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And it's hard for individuals to fight back against.
So that's where those data removal services come in. The transcript mentioned things like GDPR, CCPA.
Exactly. Those are data protection laws.
Yeah.
GDPR in Europe, CCPA in California, PIPEDA in Canada. They give you rights over your data.
Okay.
And these services use those laws. They contact the brokers for you and say, hey, delete this person's data.
And did it work for the presenter?
He reported a pretty positive experience, yeah. Said they sent out loads of removal requests, and a good number were completed.
Hmm. So it could be a useful tool then, to try and claw back some control.
Potentially, yes. Reducing your footprint out there could lessen the risk of, identity theft, spam, dodgy targeted ads.
Even things affecting your credit rating or exposing medical info, like in his case.
All of that. He seemed convinced enough to share a discount link, which suggests he felt it was worthwhile.
Interesting. Okay, so that's the personal angle. But the source also talked about government cyber defenses, right, here in the UK.
It did, and it wasn't exactly reassuring news.
Oh,
The report highlighted that apparently 28% of UK government IT systems are, old legacy systems.
28%. That sounds like a lot, and I bet that makes them vulnerable.
That's the concern, yes. Older systems are often harder to patch, harder to secure against modern threats. They might just have known weaknesses that attackers can exploit.
And there was some political finger-pointing about it. Conservatives, labor.
Unsurprisingly, yes,
Yeah.
blame gets passed around. But whoever's fault it is, having outdated critical infrastructure is just risky.
Yeah, definitely.
And this vulnerability is happening alongside this increasing talk about hostile states.
Right. That phrase kept popping up in the source. Russia, Iran, North Korea being named as potential attackers.
The presenter noted that, too, how often that language is being used now in the media.
Is it becoming more common to blame specific countries?
It seems that way. Proving it definitively is always tricky in cyber attacks, but the narrative is certainly shifting towards state-sponsored activity being a major factor. More sophisticated attacks, potentially more damaging ones.
Like that Heathrow fire example in the transcript, where they started wondering if it was more than just a technical fault.
Exactly. Questioning initial explanations, looking for potentially state involvement, it shows a change in thinking about the kinds of threats we face.
And the British Library attack was mentioned too. That caused chaos for ages, didn't it?
A huge disruption. It really illustrates how these attacks aren't just quick glitches. They can cripple major institutions for a long time.
And all this increased risk, it has knock-on effects, right? Like insurance.
Yep. The source mentions cyber insurance premiums are projected to go up by about 10%.
Ouch.
And guess who ends up paying for that?
Businesses pass it on, so us, consumers.
Likely, yes. It becomes another cost baked into everything we all end up paying, one way or another.
Great. So it's not just a UK problem, though, is it? The transcript mentioned Russia hacking UK sites, but also something in the US.
That's right. A U.S. school district facing extortion after a hack. It underlines that this is absolutely a global issue. Cyber threats don't really care about borders.
Sure.
Though the presenter did observe that maybe the UK media coverage seems heavier right now compared to the U.S.
Wonder why that is. Maybe things are particularly intense here right now. Or just different media focus.
Hard to say for sure. Could
Yeah.
be either or both.
Okay, so let's try and pull this together. Based on this source material focusing on the UK, it really does feel like the cyber threat situation is, well, escalating.
It certainly seems that way.
We're seeing these big data breaches hitting millions, like M&S. We're seeing potential disruption to basics, like supply chains, and this growing worry about, state-level attacks.
I think the key takeaway for you listening is that these aren't abstract threats anymore. They have real potential to impact your data, your risk of identity theft, and even the services you rely on day to day.
So being proactive about protecting your information seems more important than ever, like looking into those data removal services we talked about, perhaps.
That's one possible step, yeah. Taking some measure of control where you can.
Definitely. And it leaves you with a pretty big thought, doesn't it? With all this happening, more attacks, more severe attacks, this focus on hostile states, how is this going to change? Like our fundamental relationship with technology, how much can we trust these digital systems going forward?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And what's the right balance? How much responsibility falls on us as individuals versus businesses versus governments to navigate this?
Yeah, lots to think about there.
Yeah.
Definitely something to mull over.